Okay, so this is video 9, which is the video that's going to show you how to fill out the actual sort of test, if you like, that we're going to send to you, which is the last part of the actual series. What I've got in front of me here at the moment is the blank coordinates document, and you'll see that at the top we've got centre of dig clockwise from A, centre of dig clockwise from B, and face brickwork clockwise from A. Now I've denoted A as particular areas, so what we need to do is actually go into the drawing and put a bit of text near where we're starting our centre of dig, and centre of dig clockwise from A and from B, and internal parts of that. So what we need to do is go into the drawing. I've got it open at the moment, and you'll see that I've actually put some notes on the drawing itself because it's actually quite useful to know what we're talking about here. So as you can see on the drawing itself, we've already got 600 wide trench fill, so that's talking about this large section here, which is the actual dig itself. So the green line is the centre of that dig, which is denoted by this leader here, which is where they actually position the digger. And then you've got 300 mil either side of that green line, which is the full trench, which is a 600 wide trench. We've got the inner face brickwork, which, as you can see, is on the inside of that centre of dig, and that's the brickwork from here to here, which is about 100 mil. Then we've got the centre of dig from there, which is offset. Each inner brick wall is sort of offset by 100 mil as well, and then from there we've got the outer face brickwork, which I've noted up here. And now what we're going to do before we put any points on, to make it slightly more easy to see what we're doing, is we will add a red line for the outer face brickwork. So to do that, we go into our layer manager and we go into our, where is our center line? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that, right click on that, create a new layer, and we'll call this face brickwork, and we'll change the color. I'm going to give it a red color so it stands out, and I'm also going to, now there's a few ways of doing this. You can either go up to the top and select that green tick there, or you can right click on the new layer and say set current. So I'm going to do that. So we know that up here it's showing our face brickwork layer, and it's a bi-layer of red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in this left hand corner here, and I'm going to create a line that goes all the way around to this corner, all the way down to that one, across to here, up to here, inside, up through here, up to this corner, and then I'm going to close that line. What I'm going to do is, because we've actually created this green center line of dig as one line, and in some ways it would be useful to have that as a continuous line, so that you don't select it by accident and you can see what you're selecting. So instead of an L for line, I'm going to type PL, which is a polyline, and you can see that we've got P line coming up here. So what I'll do is I'm just going to control right click and go into my object snap settings, and I just want, actually I only want endpoints. I'm going to take center, intersection and extension off, so it makes life a lot easier. So I'm just going to go for that endpoint to there, zoom in a bit to that endpoint, I've gone wrong already, haven't I? I've gone on to the inside point, so I'm going to undo whilst I'm halfway through that line, which is basically U. You type U on the keyboard and that takes you one step back. So I was actually on this endpoint and I need to be on this endpoint, which is because I was on the inside face of the brickwork. And go to the next point, this point, that point, there. And I could either go up here and select there, or I can just type CL for close. So I'm going to do that. So then you'll see that we've got a red line going all around our external face brickwork. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is going to add points to the drawing, and then we're going to ID those points in the same way as we did in video 8. So I'm going to go back into the layer properties and select points, set that as current, and I'm just thinking about whether or not I want to have points in different colors. So we could have centerline points in the points layer of yellow, and we can actually have face brickwork points in a different color. So if I go into layer manager and right click on points and create a new layer and call that points face. You can call it whatever you like, but I'm just giving it that name because I think that's going to tell me all I need. And I'm going to create those points in a, let's go for a cyan color because it's going to stand out against the others. And I also need to make that layer current. So let's start with the actual face brickwork points. And so I'll create those. So start typing multiple. Yep. And point. And I'm going to select the end point of all of these, which I follow this red line on. And you see it's easier once you've got the red line in place. You can see that you're on exactly the right point of where you need to be. So that's those. So at this point I could actually export all of those ID points out, and in some ways it's easier to do that separately. So we could do that. So all you do is type multiple and ID, and you'd select each of these individually. So I need to control right click and set this back up for node, take the endpoint off, and then we know we've got node. So I'll select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I know I've done those. If I hit F2, that gives me all of these lines that I need. Control copy that out. The face brickwork, I'll just paste over the top of that, and then you can tidy that up. And then we're going to do the same. Just escape out of that, back into AutoCAD. And what I could actually do at this point is to make life simpler, because we're going to have these points getting in the way of our other points, is I could actually just go back into the other layer that we created before. So instead of being on points face, we're just going to be on points. Make that layer current, because if you try and freeze a layer when it's the current layer, it creates problems. So I'm going to just freeze that layer, which is the light bulb, and you'll see that that point has gone. All of the points have gone, in fact. One thing I completely forgot to mention, which I started talking about earlier, on this document we're talking about clockwise from A and clockwise from B, and I should have got us to actually create a bit of text, which it starts at this top left hand corner here and at this top left hand internal corner here. So let's do that before I go any further. And being on the points layer is fine, so you can either type T for text, or you can type DT. So T for text will give you M text, which is a text in a box, and you can create big paragraphs of text and manipulate them individually. So I'll show you that quickly. You basically draw a box, and then you can type the text within it. But if you keep hitting enter once you've done the text you need, then it just creates more and more lines. So once you've created the text, you just need to click out of that, and then you've got your text. And you can also manipulate that once you've drawn it to give you one line of text or a bigger box. And you can also change the size of it and things like that. But what I want to do is just create just a one-line text here, and to do that you can just type DT, which is I think it's called dynamic text, and so it says specify start point. Now I know that I want all of our measurements to start at this top left-hand corner, so I'm going to select close by, and then it says specify text height. Now, at the moment I don't actually know what size my height of text needs to be, so I can drag up, and you can see that I've got this polar coordinate, and it's telling me that the actual height that I'm going for here is 0.414, 0.45. So I think I need a bit of text to show up relatively well. I think 0.5, which is actually showing me down here on the command prompt, is actually about the right height. So I'm just going to hit return. And rotation angle, I don't need the text to be rotated at any particular angle, so I'm just going to hit return again. And then it says, okay, what text do you want? So I'm going to say A. And now when you return, you have to return twice, and it gives you A. So I'm going to copy that and say that's our starting point A. And down here, our internal point, clockwise, I'm just going to copy that. And I can double click on the text itself, and I'm going to double click and change that to B, so you just type in B. So I know now that as it shows on the Word document, my centre of dig clockwise from A, so A is shown here on the drawing, and when I save the drawing it'll be saved with A and B on there. You can also go into your you can change the properties of this font, because it's a bit naff. It's a standard font, but as it is, it shows you A and B, so you don't really need to mess around with it too much. So okay, so we've done our face brickwork points. So now we're going to do multiple point for our center line of dig. And let's see what object snap settings I've got. So I don't want node, I want endpoint. Back again. So there's our first endpoint. I've zoomed right in on that, so you can't really see the point at the moment. But you'll see that this one comes up and shows slightly bigger. Now one thing I haven't noticed is that this green line doesn't extend up to the center line of the dig. I'll tell you what I'll do. I will continue round on the drawing, and then I'll add that in a minute. So that's that corner. Right, so it does extend down onto this one, so that's fine. It's important to zoom in so that you can actually see whether the lines are in the same position, or as you can see, this center line is just slightly offset from this grey line here, which is like a grid line, or could be a dimension line, but it's actually a grid line, as you can see when you zoom out. So that's one line there, so we can take this up to here, and then here. So that should be all the points we need for the external faces. As you can see on here, we've got So we've got centre of dig clockwise from A external, and we've got centre of dig clockwise from B internal. We can do the internal points at the same time. We just need to make sure that we select them differently. When we're actually exporting them out. We know that we've got 4 of these lines. So I just need to escape out, and if I regenerate, then we can see all our points coming up. I remember I've got to go back here and just extend this line here. And then I can just put a single point in here. I'll zoom out. Regenerate that. And you can see that these 2 points down here and here are quite close together, so we're going to have to zoom in when we do our when we take our points out. So let's do that again. Multiple ID. We're going to start from A, do the external points. So shift and right click, go back into our object snaps and just have node on its own, so we can actually zoom out a bit further. So I've selected that first point, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, zoom in a bit, 8, 9, 10. So when I hit F2 now, I've got all the 10 points that I've just created. I can select those, copy them, highlight all those, paste those in, and then do the same for the centre of dig internal. What I'm going to do is escape out first, because then that will show me a completely new start from that, and I know that this will purely be for the internal points. So I'd already selected this one, so it's really the internal points. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. F2, select just those. Just those, paste out, and then that's that done. You can file and save that. Once you've saved that Word document, you can then send it over for us to just make sure that that's all set up correctly in the same way, and we can refer it back to our test document. Okay, so that should give you the tools to be able to complete the test and then send this off to Dean. Okay, thanks very much.